We could pretend like we're just starting. Oh,
And let's start. Yeah, no. um, so, so having said some of these things about strengths, I'm curious, what questions do you have around your strengths? As you read them, like what are there like broad questions that you have before I get into the details of the specific strengths that you all have? So no. As I talk about strengths, are there any interest in particular of like how these strengths may influence these talent themes, these top five, how they influence anything in your life or how you might do things differently? Is there any thoughts on that? So, for example, some people are really interested in how this might impact the work that they're doing in school. Some might be interested in how this might lead them in terms of careers or how they could lead using their strengths. I just want to check in with people and see if they're wanting to know anything about the strengths as it relates to other parts of their life.
career for me would be a big one.
Okay,
And a second would be group dynamics, whether that's in a classroom or a student organization.
great. That's helpful. Okay, so given all of that, if everyone's okay, I'm going to go down the list and start talking about different themes that people have. So, Brandon, I'll start with yours, I think, because I see it right there. And you brought up work and like team dynamics, whether it be work or school. And I think I can definitely do that with yours. I already was looking at it and started thinking of some ideas. So I'll just start out because there may be overlap. Feel free to ask questions too as we go. If you want to know more about a specific theme that I'm talking about. So let's start with futuristic. Futuristic people tend to they ruminate on the future. When they lie down at bed, what I've found is a lot of futuristic people, thoughts about the future are what go through their mind. And so it's not uncommon that a lot of what you talk about in a group, for example, might be about what we do or how you think about the future. And so there's another strength theme called context. And context likes to take the past and really process things through the past. So those can be good if they can be seen as complementary. But if you have those two people connected and they're trying to work on something and they don't know that about each other, that could create some conflict, right? But futuristic, that's just their mindset is typically around future and coming up with what they want their future to look like or what they envision the future to look like often. Strategic. This is one of my favorites to work with. I don't have strategic, but what I love about strategic is when they're looking at decision-making processes, they're looking at all the options and then they're following those pathways down. They're looking at the option, they're thinking about the end result of taking that option in a decision. And then they decide, okay, this is the one we should do. What I've seen happen for people who have strategic is they'll make a decision and they'll describe to the group, yeah, we should do this. And this is why. Like the thing that they miss is this is the why. Often people who are strategic are thinking very fast. They're usually fast thinkers, and everyone else probably would come up with the same direction, but it's the strategic people are like at step 30 and other people are just at step 2. So helping others on the team get to your step 30 is going to be an important thing potentially. Learner, you're going to ask a lot of questions. Typically learners like to ask good questions. They just constantly dig in. But learners, because they like to learn, they develop this trait of learning a lot of different things. They usually they can't help themselves. That's what they do. It's a part of who they are. So activator. Activator is an interesting one because people who have activator tend to just like to dive in. So between your strategic and activator, you probably get people saying, wait, hold up, I'm not there yet. Or why are we taking action already, right? Like some people, myself included, like to really think, like take time to get to a decision. But between your strategic and activator, I wouldn't be surprised on teams if you're ready to move quicker than everybody else based on those two themes. You probably find that you're having to like really pull people along with you. And part of that is because you're ready to jump in and you're not afraid of making mistakes along the way. Activators are like, we'll figure it out as we go. That's kind of, they're like, dive in, next step, we got this, we got to make progress. Now, what can be perceived as a downside to activator is that activators can be people who are perceived as not like wanting to finish the thing. They love to start, but maybe they don't always want to finish something. So that can be a challenge for activators or for people who work with activators, is they're really good at starting, but what does it look like to finish for them? And then finally, input. Input is just data collection. It's usually data or experiences. Usually people have a collection. So it doesn't have to be a physical collection like rocks or stamps or anything like that. But usually people like to collect experiences, could be another one. I like to collect experiences on my bike or going to the top of 14ers. Some people like will describe it as, you know, how do I, trips, like they want to collect different places they've been. So that's kind of a quick rundown. Brandon, how did I do when you look at what questions do you have? How did I describe what you see in those?
Yeah, I definitely think, I mean, I have like 10 different plans for my majors as far as like graduation plans and classes and like integrating different minors or certificates. I have, yeah. So strategic, you definitely nailed my group dynamic in that I'm usually very ready to move on and move forward with a project. I just had a group meeting Tuesday where that's where it was. It was like, yeah. So I thought you did really well. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no. Any questions? I mean, I talked about a lot of ideas, but any questions that you have around your top 5?
No, I think that's, yeah, no, yeah, it all seemed right, especially the activator piece. I'm
Brandon,
not
remind me.
closer.
Okay. So remind me what your major is. You had double major. It was ethnic studies, and then was it like it was something physiology related? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. Anatomy, physiology.
Tell me about some of the directions you're considering around your future. I know you're thinking about your future, so.
Infectious disease physician assistant.
Okay.
Something within healthcare.
Okay.
But also working in diversity, unpacking whiteness in the workplace.
Yeah, Brandon, I don't know what your other themes are. One of the things I think you might want to like think through is how much do you want to be on like working with people on infectious diseases? Because I hear you say physician assistant, and what that makes me think of is being in a position where you're like, if you were a physician assistant for heart surgery, you'd be in an operation room, right? So I don't know what infectious diseases and physician assistant looks like exactly, but if it's involving working with patients, I can see some of that. But I also see your themes working out in a way where I wonder if you're really going to want to do like research that advances things, just as you described, potentially for equity in the infectious disease world. And how do you do that as a physician's assistant is where I would kind of lead you. I don't think you're wrong to pursue it. I would just say, as you're considering it, consider how you're going to advance research in that area, because you have so many strategic thinking, strategic learner input, that a lot of that likes to use the data and with that futuristic to kind of advance things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
The other career is teacher, so.
Okay, definitely fits. Yep. All right, Jonathan, I am going to make sure we talk about all of them to some degree, but I'll probably start with Achiever and Command and then Woo. So I brought up Command. Jonathan, I'm really curious, how do you experience Command? When you read it, did it fit?
Yeah, it kind of fit in. I think whenever I'm like in a group or anything and nobody's really taking like the charge to like communicate or tell us like how we're going to do this project and where we're going to start, I usually like to take that role and get it rolling and everything.
Okay. Yeah, I think that you have a unique combo in Command and Woo. So for those who don't know, Woo stands for winning others over. Jonathan, do you find that that maybe you would live by this theme? There aren't strangers, there's just people I haven't met yet.
Definitely.
Right?
Yes.
So woo is like there's no such thing as a stranger. There's just people I haven't got to know yet. I haven't like introduced myself to them. I haven't like brought them into the fold, so to speak. So woo loves groups. They love to like interact with people. They are like the more the merrier in a lot of cases. And so I think with woo and command, you'll find yourself pulling, like getting people together in a group. And then with command, you're going to be the natural leader in some ways, in the sense of like, you're going to naturally feel that urge to take charge. That's probably the way I would describe it. Is you don't have to, but your position, your natural inclination is kind of, hey, let's take charge. So for jobs, I see a lot of command people who have command often want to do like first responder type of work. So like if you were to poll, if you did the assessment for ER doctors, you'd probably find a lot of them have command. It would be my guess. So we talked about command, we talked about woo. Okay, Jonathan, I have a question. You have achiever. Do you by chance like to-do lists?
Not necessarily.
Okay, not necessarily. Do you
Yeah.
like to feel like you complete things?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
So like for me, the way achiever shows up, one of the ways, I have achiever at number 6 for me. And that is, I really like when I start dishes, I'm going to finish them, because if there's 1 or 2 left on the table to like clean, it's not completed. And that really bothers me. So that's how my achiever shows up. I'm wondering if that strikes you as similar. Like if there's something to be done, you want to bring it to completion.
Definitely. When I like to start my homework, I always want to finish it and not like, oh, I'll do it. I'll finish it up tomorrow. I like to start it and finish it.
Yeah. So how that can be, and what can be frustrating for an achiever in a group, is when they're relying on others to complete something in order for them to continue completing something. So it's really important that you know that if you have to break down items into smaller goals where you recognize what's yours to complete and what's others to complete. And even though you have to wait to complete a piece of it, you've completed what you can in that moment, especially since you have command, because you're like, I could just do it, probably, is what you probably think when you're on a team, maybe.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
So Jonathan, what questions do you have about your top 5?
How can I use these strengths to help me with like online learning and like just study habits?
Really good question. Oh, I like that a lot. All right. So for the online learning piece, I think with you have activator and command. So how can you take an active role in the remote learning? I've noticed, for example, Jonathan, you've left your camera on, and I bet that's because you're ready to engage. You're ready to like see things happen. So sometimes that might be that you are the one that jumps in and activates the conversation, who starts it up, right? Who gets it going. And so I would say in the remote learning environment, you're going to be a great catalyst for encouraging others to be a part. Like you can set the tone by probably like if the instructor is asking for answers to questions, you taking the lead and then asking, but saying something like, say, that's my thoughts, but I would love to hear what other classmates have to say. So you're showing and you're leading by example, and you're inviting others in. Because the hard thing is not everyone has that trait of like wanting to jump in, but inviting them to jump in with you will be really helpful in making your classes more interactive, is what I would guess for you in terms of remote learning. And then the other question was getting things done. Is that right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to do to-do lists. I mentioned if you like to-do lists, and you said not really. But I think you want to lean into the achiever and figure out, what does it look like for me to organize all the things I want to complete? It doesn't have to be a to-do list, but I think achievers, like I think that achievers naturally like lean towards just getting things done, complete. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they have structure built in to keep track of everything. So I would say find a structure that helps you keep track of all the things that you want to complete.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Does that help?
Yeah, definitely.
And know that you have a really good part is once you see what you have to complete, you're going to start it. You have activator and you have achiever. So you have the kind of the winning combo of you're going to want to like jump in. And once you jump in, you want to bring it to completion. So it's just a matter of knowing all the things you need to jump in and start, having some way of keeping track of all that.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So we are on Aaron. Aaron, let's talk about your top 5 right now. You have 5 that are completely different than the ones we've talked about so far, which is great. I'm excited. So consistency. Aaron, do you feel like you want people to follow the rules the same way?
Kind of at times, depending on the situation.
Depends on the situation, right? But consistency likes things to stay somewhat in line. Like they don't mind rules. They don't mind what you might call protocol or procedures, because it gives them a sense of what it should be. You know, that idea of what should be. Consistency really enjoys that. Sometimes they like to create consistency in their own lives. So they may be, I don't know if this is true for you, Aaron, but you may feel like you like routine. Routine may be important to you. Yeah, I'm seeing a head nod. Okay, cool. So that's important for you to know. Now, discipline feeds into that. I would say people with discipline tend to really, the way I describe discipline in a term or a phrase is ducks in a row, if you've heard that idea, right? So, Aaron, I'm wondering if you had a stack of papers and I was to come along and just move like the first couple of papers and so they weren't lined up, if that would really bother you. Yeah. So people who have discipline, they're usually fairly organized and they have their systems in place as well. So discipline, if you work with a person who has discipline, it can be wonderful if you know this about them. But if you feel like you don't like that structure, if you're on a team, you might find that people are like fight against your structure. That's because they're not as disciplined. That's not their like way of being. But if it's important to you, finding ways to do that where you still get that structure and inviting them all into that structure as well is what I would recommend. So I think you have a structure. You think that everyone should have that structure. But when people don't, it's really explaining it to them. And then they are like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And they can jump on board with you. And then let's talk about restorative. Aaron, do you kind of see things and recognize when something's not right and it needs to be fixed? Is that like a mindset? Like you'll see things that may be broken and you're like, that needs to get fixed. And I don't know exactly how, but I'm going to figure it out. Like I need to. So Aaron, did I hear you say that you are computer science?
Yes.
Okay. So in the engineering world in general, computer science isn't like exactly engineering, but it kind of is, right? So in the computer science world, I wonder if you would rather something be more broken than less broken, because if it's more broken, then it's more obvious it needs to be fixed. Like you'll actually break something more if that leads to you fixing it.
I mean, personally, I wouldn't break something more in the computer science world, but like if it is broken, I would like to fix it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Right. Okay. So in a lot of ways, people who people like they see problems and they're ready to make solutions essentially. And so when you design coding around something, you're going to see if you can frame it as this is the problem that needs to be solved, that might help you in the way that you continue to do that schoolwork. Includer. So I would guess that when groups are being formed in class or in other settings, you're always looking for the person that doesn't get included, who's on the outside, and you want to bring them into your group. That's just your natural tendency, is to look around and to see who's not being invited into a group and to pull them in. Is that accurate? And that's a great trait to have, is to find the person that just isn't naturally getting to be a part of the group and pulling them in. You will win friends over that way. I think that that's something you should know about yourself, is you're gonna that's a natural relationship building tactic, is that you want to include people that don't necessarily always feel included. So that's a really awesome trait to be aware of. And that's how you'll build a lot of your relationships, I would guess, is you'll see people and they'll be on the outside and you'll say, come on in the inside, and really invite. And by doing that, you'll have an opportunity to build those relationships. And then finally, responsibility. Aaron, you have a lot of what I call the executing traits. So purple, if you notice, these are all colored, and I didn't talk about that much, but the domains mean something. And so you have a lot of ones where it's like executing or get stuff done. Like and with responsibility specifically, you feel a sense of like, there are things to be done and I'm responsible for them. And I'm going to make sure that what I'm responsible for is taken care of. Is that fair to say? I'm wondering what that looks like for you. As I say that, what comes to mind for you?
Definitely, I guess now will be homework. It's like I make sure I write down what I need to do for a certain day and I get it done in that day. So it's what I have to do.
Yeah, so I'm guessing you're pretty good at using your calendaring system of some sort. Between your discipline and your responsibility, nothing's going to fall through the cracks, is how I would put it. Nice. That's awesome. Okay. Aaron, as I described those 5, I'm just curious what questions come up for you.
I don't think I have any questions. I mean, I kind of had some, but you already answered them already just by going through each one, so I'm good.
Okay, cool. All right, Shayna, I'm going to do my best to get through your top 5 as well. We talked a little bit about achiever, but just to reemphasize, achiever is when you want like this, it's like an urge inside of you to complete things. Like you see something and you want to bring it to completion. You want to achieve it. So another thing I would say about achievers, for those of you who have achiever in your top 5, unless you have competition high, you may not want to compete, but you want to compete against yourself. You want to better yourself. Whatever goals you have for yourself, you'll continue maybe to set new goals and try to achieve it. So for me, when I'm on my bike, I like to ride my bike. And I have this, like, I have something where it keeps track of certain bike rides that I do. And I can see my personal record, my personal best. And I always want to best my personal best. So that's just an example. For those of you who are achievers, you may find yourself self-competitive, not competitive against others, but competitive of being the best version of yourself in some areas of your life. So let's talk about intellection. So for Shayna, intellection is usually someone who's seen as really processing things. I like the picture of like a big machine. So thoughts go through the machine and they get churned and churned and churned through the machine. Shayna, I'm wondering, I don't know if you have the ability to come on mic or not, but I'm wondering if, can I ask you a question? Do you find meditation to be frustrating? Have you ever tried meditating?
Yeah, it is. I'm getting better. I try to turn it into like while I'm hiking or biking. I have like a stationary bike. I try to do it then because I've realized the whole just sitting still and trying to like, get rid of the thoughts or not focus on all of them or stop everything from coming in. My brain is just always going. So it is very different. That was a long-winded yes. Okay, no, but I love it. I love what you said there. You said, my brain is always going. So, and the idea of meditation is like push the thoughts out, right? Like that's not how intellection typically work. And so meditation isn't always seen as compatible. Intellection, I've also heard it described as always having a mental hum, right? Like there's always something you're thinking about. There's always something that you're processing and you're wanting to think about more. My mom has intellection. And when I went over her top 5 with her, she was like, can I take my list again? And like, can I think about it more and then come back to you? Like that's a very common thing for intellection is like, you'll hear them say, I want to think about it more. So when you're on a team, Shayna, you may be the one who isn't ready to commit because you want to think on something more. You might be okay with the direction people are going, but you also still want to have the ability to change direction because you know there are more thoughts you want to have on something. That's just a possibility. We've talked about learner, but learner often just
they ask good questions. So with Intellection, you be processing, and then you might come up with a question that people are like, oh, wow, that's a really good question. Does that sound about right? Have you been told that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about belief. We haven't talked about belief much. So Shayna, I bet you if we were to ask you to do a values exercise, you would be like, this is the heart of who I am. My values and what I am about is really, really important to me. And if you, if someone were to ask you to like do something that was against those values, let's say, I'm just throwing this out. If you are really loyal and someone was asking you to do something that fought against your loyalty to, say, friends, that would be near impossible for you. It would be soul crushing to do something against that value.
Yeah, and I've been that way since I was a kid. Just try to do the right thing, or what I believe to be right, or what we all as a society know to be right most of the time, just, yes.
So with belief, some people may perceive you, the way that belief can be perceived is stubborn, because they can't get you to go off of, like, you are seeing things in this light. And so to move it outside of that feels like you're abandoning part of yourself and abandoning what is ultimately important. And so the thing I would just say about work, Shayna, is people who have belief tend to be those who, if you were asked to cut corners in your work, you would be against it. You would be fully against it. So it's going to be really important that you find the right organization that doesn't ask you to do things that go against your beliefs, because
Right.
you won't last there. That won't be a place that you'll want to be for hardly at all.
I would say I was more stubborn when I was younger, just very and as I've gotten older, I'm able to, listen and appreciate other people's views. But yeah, if it's like lying, stealing, cheating, like anything that's we all know to be wrong. In any workplace I've ever been, there's always been some type of situation. I'm always like, I won't tell on you, but I'm also not going to participate, so.
Yep, exactly.
But yeah.
Okay. So yeah, those are some of the things that I'm seeing in yours. As I look at yours, Shayna, remind me what your major is.
I'm getting a bachelor's in psychology, but I need to go on to master's and then potentially a PhD in experimental psychology.
Yep.
I want to help people with trauma. So talking about the belief, it's I want to help people who've experienced trauma get back to normalcy and living happy, healthy lives.
Okay. Yeah, I see your combination of intellection, learner, and belief in what you're saying very much. Because
it said I should be a psychology major or a psychologist. And I was like, sometimes you need the signs and sometimes I don't always get the message. I was like, okay, that's definitely, I hear you, God, or whatever you want to say, or higher powers.
Yeah, no, I think it's very much there. And then I see, the achiever really being able to push you forward. Sometimes the thing that I see in the academic world is it's really hard to keep things moving, right? Like you can get lost in thought, and I think your achiever probably keeps you motoring forward, is what I would say.
Yeah.
Any questions I can answer around your top 5 that maybe we didn't talk about?
I think just the same that because everyone's are a little different, just how these can help me know better how to study more efficiently. Sorry, I can't word today. And then just the online learning, this is my first laptop. This is my first really ever, I barely even take pictures of my face. And then all of a sudden I'm doing videos and all this. But the online learning, I know it's just policing your own time and constantly checking in. And that I've done pretty good. But I find that I can do 10 hours and of course stop for food and restrooms and water and all that. And then I'm just kind of my brain's just in a, I don't know, just it's so much that I'm struggling with taking breaks. I'm struggling with, stepping away. So I didn't know if maybe of those you could help me or an idea with that. Yeah.
So Shayna, I think that you need to see that, that whatever strategies you need to do, whether it be a walk or other self-care strategies, I'm not going to say meditation because we already talked about how that doesn't work, no. But you need to see those as things that need to be achieved in between. Like I heard, you're doing your classes and then you're like, okay, I should get some homework done. No, you need to back away from it all, but you need to be able to like frame all of those things as something that needs to be achieved in a day. So when
Right.
you say that, I mean, self-care itself is something that you, if you were a to-do list person, I don't know if you are or not, I'm a huge to-do list person. If I'm going to take care of myself, my partner, my wife knows that I have to put it on my to-do list to actually get it done.
Right.
So like if I don't actually say, go read a book or read chapter such and such for my own pleasure, right? Or go for a walk, and it has to be usually specific. Go for a walk that's at least a mile or
Right.
something like that. That is one strategy I see on yours that's going to be really important.
Right. I've been trying to sit outside just in the sun for like 5 minutes. And of course, I'm thinking of everything I'm going to do when I get back in. So that's a whole other thing. But just getting the vitamin D and a little bit of smoke inhalation. But, you know, just getting some you know, air-ish and some sun has been helping. So just to
Yeah.
take that break. So maybe I should do more of those. And yeah, definitely need to work out more. So thanks. I need to get
Yeah,
outside.
and I think it's okay. Oh,
Uh-oh.
are
You
we?
okay?
Yeah, everything's good. Let me get back to the meeting. Something interrupted my,
Oh.
I had a different screen come up. I'm just wondering, I'm thinking through yours, and I think one thing that's coming to mind too is don't be afraid to ask questions. If you have the question, others do, and you're going to be good at asking those questions, especially when it comes to tech stuff. If you don't feel like something is made clear in a class, because to be honest, all the instructors are like trying to transition their stuff online, you're going to know how to ask the question, and it's going to benefit more than just you. It's scary to be the first one to ask that question, but I think that that's going to be one thing. I think we're all adapting and we're all learning as we go. And so you want to learn, and you're trying to learn, and you feel like there are certain questions need to be asked to learn something, go ahead and ask them. I think that's going to really benefit you in the remote learning environment, where I think there's less questions being asked and there should be more in this environment. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I agree. I struggle with that sometimes, but then when I do, I often do hear, oh, I was thinking the same thing. So just need a little nudge. So yeah, I do need to ask questions. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So I went through everyone's where they had put them in the top 5, but I want to hear, what are people's perception? How do you want to use, what's one step? Let me do this. For those of you who've learned more about your top 5, both from what you read and from maybe this conversation, what's one thing you're going to put into practice differently moving forward? Because that's the whole point of these, is to invest energy to do things differently that's for you.
I want to organize myself in a way that I can know how to begin homework, or like how to start the homework, and how to start projects, and how to start studying and everything, and just have like a calendar or something that has my day set up in a way that I know what I'm supposed to be doing at that time.
Cool. That's awesome.
For me, it's going to be finishing tasks for the activator piece, not just starting a bunch of different projects, like really making sure that I know what I'm committing to and making sure that I finish it.
And Brandon, you know, if you're on a team, just if people know that in advance, that, hey, I'm really good at starting things, are there other people that feel like they're really good at finishing things? It's okay, as long as that's communicated up front. Like sometimes that can really work well. If you're doing it by yourself, yeah, you have to like complete things if it's a solo project. But I would just say like it's both. Yeah, that's awesome. What else?
I guess for me, it's kind of related to Shauna's, like knowing when to take a break at times, because like I'm always like, get this task done this day or week, but I kind of had trouble taking breaks during that time. So I think I'm going to start doing that better.
You know what's one thing you just said, Aaron, that made me realize you and Shauna both share responsibility. And people who feel responsibility don't always realize they have a responsibility to themselves to take care of themselves. So if you can frame what you need to like do self-care work in terms of, hey, it's my responsibility to make sure that I take care of myself, sometimes that can help in terms of prioritizing it and making sure it fits in and it doesn't get pushed out. That's how I would maybe frame it, so that it fits within your strengths too. Does that feel like right? Yeah. Cool. So Brandon, my partner was joking about needing a little smoke inhalation on the walk to school. So I know that there's a lot of ways to take care of oneself. It sounds like part of this is like helpful in thinking through all that and the remote learning. So I think that's really awesome. I think keep asking those questions. Like, how can I use these strengths to move forward in what I need? Like continue to like come back to them, because you're going to naturally want to do things this way. One of the hardest things is that you may look at your peers in your classes and realize they do things very differently. And that's because they have different strengths. So what I want you to hear from me is don't compare yourself, because if you're comparing yourself, instead of evaluating yourself through your strengths, you're going to be looking at someone else and the way they're using their strengths. Just keep that in mind. I know it's so hard to do things in your own unique way when you're seeing your peers do it a certain way, right? But I look at your all's top 5, and I think you probably don't find people have the same ones. You probably find that people operate differently, and that's okay. That was something I should have said on the front end, but I want to add it at the end here is I think the beauty of the strengths is it gives you like kind of a roadmap for how you can operate and how you can do things, rather than trying to look at peers and how they've found success. Because the way they find success is not necessarily going to be aligned with yours, and you're going to get potentially frustrated. So I would just offer that to all of you as you kind of continue in your schoolwork, not only in this remote environment, but when you're in classroom in person as well. Betty, I'm sorry, I know you have a closing activity, so let me hand it back over to you with the couple minutes we have remaining.
Yeah, no worries. Actually, my closing activity was going to be to ask folks what their one takeaway would be from this session, and if they had any, like one takeaway and one question. But it feels like we're on the same brainwave, so no problem.
Awesome. Well, again, I want to thank you all for coming, spending your time here when you're super busy with exams, studying, homework, you name it. And one more Zoom meeting for that matter. I know the Zoom fatigue is real. I feel it too. So thank you all. I really appreciated this. And if at any point you want to talk about your strengths at more depth than we could in this time, I'm available. Just email me, greg.head@colostate.edu, and we can set up a full appointment. We can set up 30 or 45 minutes and really dig in and talk about your life and how this looks in different aspects of your schoolwork, your planning for your career or graduate school, all of those pieces. I'd be happy to do that in more length with any of you. So,
Greg, thank you for giving up some of your time to be here with our students and to just share your insights on our strengths. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome, everybody. Well, I hope you all have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah.
Thanks, you too.
Yep.
Everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.